are going to do our quick connect today. A few things we're going to cover. We're going to cover some tax and component changes, a comp time and retirement change, some pay stub updates, and performance. Of course, we're always attempting our best to give you guys some more speed and get this information the way that you are not waiting on time. First few things, payroll accuracy, a couple of things that we fixed. We've noticed a couple of here and there items for certain customers came across it. So we went ahead and fixed some zero total adjustments as well as some timesheet discrepancies. So those would have very clearly been notified if you ran into it. I think we had one customer for each, but we just wanted to let you know that we were aware of those and got them resolved. Of course, some pay stub and performance items. But first, we're going to talk about tax and components. So one of the things we've been asked about for some time now has been to please set up a way for the system to allow for taxes, for state taxes, Idaho, Oregon, across Washington. So we have a couple of our, sorry, my thing here. We have a couple of our customers who have been wanting to have the capability of setting it up so that their state taxes for Idaho, for Oregon can go across. So I'm going to say if you're in Washington, but right on the border of one of the other states, then you can pay state taxes for the other entities. And so we have that set up in the system so that it can manage with similar to our federal taxes, except for you will put in the system based on that state tax. So for instance, in this particular case, we have this format in our capability of a lump sum, excuse me, wrong one, of state tax. So you would put in the information of Idaho and then dash state tax, and then or Oregon space dash space state tax, and these will populate in for the state taxes for the employees that are assigned to them. Now, of course, we all know when we're talking about assigning state taxes, there is a state tax setup in the employee record. So in our employee record, we're going to go to component, income tax, and then we're going to utilize our Idaho or Oregon state tax. Keep in mind that Washington is in here, but I don't recommend that you assign Washington to your Washington employees because it will populate the earnings into the W-2, and a lot of people don't want earnings into the W-2. So if it's Washington, just leave it blank. But Idaho and Oregon are here. And I know that we've had some other requests, one particularly that we're working on for Illinois, that's getting added to the drop down, as well as it requires an additional field to be able to fill out in the system. So we're working on that as well. So if you're someone who is looking for that or other types of states, please just communicate with us what exactly the need is so that we can get that done. The Illinois item is in heavy development right now so that we can get that delivered. But you want to select that as well as the single, married, or head of household, and then any withholdings or any additional supplemental withholding that the employee requests. And then it will be a part of their deductions within the drop downs in their employee record to be the state tax based on the assignment of Idaho or Oregon, whichever one that they need. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it is a requirement of the system for this to be set up via Vision. So not the actual components and things. You can still set up the components and walk through how to do that, but you will want to make sure that we have it turned on for you to say, yes, there are multiples for that. So for instance, right now, if you're set up for Washington, but you want to go across states, that means that you need to have the Washington toggle kind of turned off and it be able to associate with all 3 states or 2 states based on what you need. So we're going to go here into taxes and we're going to add a new state tax field. And then we of course can set up the vendor based on what our needs are here, default tax vendor, but this is for IRS, so we would definitely want to set up whatever our state tax would be. Once we save and close that, we have our state taxes here. That's when we can come in here and create our Idaho state tax. Once we have that set up for our Idaho state tax rate or table, we can have this assigned based on the information that needs to be in there. And then we would come to the employee and assign which employee that has that. Another new item that you'll notice in our system here is we have added active and inactive status. So this is still having a little bit of work done on it. We are working on the ability for it to disappear out of certain fields throughout the system. So for instance, if it's inactive, for it to hide from this screen so that there would be a toggle here for active versus inactive. At this point, that's not set up in the system, but keep in mind that you can inactivate and it will stop it even if it's assigned to an employee record. If you inactivate it, it will not calculate for that employee. So the inactive and active scenario will not calculate if it's turned on or off. We've also set up a new category. I do believe it's been in here. Some of you may have seen it in the past, but it is set up as a lump sum amount. So you can actually set up now a holiday lump sum amount that will populate once a year. So the holiday lump sum amount has been coded in the system to say, if this is assigned, it's going to hit the very first paycheck of every year. So it's based off of that pay period setup. It's going to look at the very first pay period of the year, and that's the pay period it wants to utilize. Now, if you have a scenario here, where maybe you front load your vacations based on tables, you can also use a table drop down, and then of course you would want to choose a lump sum table. So you would actually have to go and create the lump sum table. So tables, you come here, again, create a new one, sum table, and then I could utilize my 1 to 2 years, 2 hours, 3 to 4 years, or 8 hours. And then once that's available, some here. Sorry, I didn't save it. So I didn't. My lump sum table, and then my lump sum table that matches. Then, of course, I could come here and choose my employees to have set up. Grab, I can click and drag, set up all my employees, and then I can assign them based on the table. Again, this is a scenario where if I chose and I wanted to front load my vacation, I could actually choose this and activate and inactivate it. So I can actually put this on a specific time frame and say I want to populate 80 hours of vacation, or I want to populate a specific hours if I have this on rate and no table. I can populate the hours I want, 80. And again, then I could go ahead and say, oh, I just want this active only for my last paycheck of every year. So maybe my December 31st payroll is going to populate or front load my vacations for my next year, 2027. So I can utilize this and then leave it inactive until just that December payroll, come in here, reactivate it, run my December payroll. It will front load all my vacation and then come back out afterwards and inactivate it so that it doesn't go on any other payrolls. So there are a couple of new tricks there with activating or inactivating and utilizing a lump sum table as well as state taxes within the system. Now, of course, we'll put together some guides and we'll get some other documentation and videos out there to help walk through these, because we all know that every single scenario might be a little different from instance to instance. And so we're happy to help any way we can in any questions that we have on that. Can I go over that again, please? I'm sorry, which part? I'm so sorry. Do we want to go over? Not sure which part. Accounting. Not sure who accounting is either. I apologize. I definitely recorded it. I recorded this video, so it will be available. What will happen is after this call, it's going to get pushed out to everybody. But yeah, so if you are setting up a lump sum, then you can come here and say plus to add new. Do you or do you not want your distributions added? I'm going to say no in this case. I can put in lump sum, and then I can choose whether or not it's a lump sum table or a lump sum amount, whichever one I want there. If it's an amount, it's not going to request the table. If it's a table, it will request the table. And then save and close. And then, of course, come over and assign my employees. I will need to go over again which table that they're a part of. Again, sorry, zipped right through that again, but we are recording this, so it will go out to everyone that may want to look at that. How do we add an employee expense reimbursement that is not taxable or related in payroll? So if you come into the descriptions of types, use the plus sign. This will bring you over to different wage types. So if you have a wage type, which in your case, it's not necessarily a wage, but you can add one that's called reimbursements. And then from that point, you can choose what they're exempt from. So are they exempt from taxes? It's exempt from, where's my components? Labor and industries. It's exempt from L&I. And then you would continue to do that until you have everything that your reimbursement is exempt from. And then at that point, it will be available in your components so that you can add a wage type, which would be reimbursement. And this can be utilized to reimburse, uniforms, reimburse. Maybe they went and picked up donuts for you because you were late for your team meeting and they brought in donuts and you wanted to reimburse them. You can reimburse anything on those paychecks. You just want to make sure they're exempt from all of the deductions. So no benefits, no deductions, no taxes, because it is a reimbursement. Different departments receive different lump sums. Would the table be the best option to add a different department? Yes, that would work out perfectly. You could do a lump sum based on on your table assigned as, instead of how many years they've been there, it would be based on the different departments. So again, you would just come to tables, and in tables, instead of doing a lump sum based on years of service, you would say which department they're in and the amount. Okay. See here, make sure I got over expanding the taxes to the components. Comp and retirement. So we have added a new feature that allows you to determine and choose when retirement is calculated. This came up for a couple of customers. They were having some questions on how this was being set up. Now, this is a toggle that has to be done at this time by Vision because we set it up so quickly. It's not in the system yet. It takes more development to put in a on and off for you personally to utilize in the system, more of a database change. And so we just did it on the back end. So if you do have some kind of situation where you need it to be before versus after, or excuse me, calculate when time is earned versus time accrual, or maybe both, because we had a scenario where someone needed both. This can be done by the Vision team. Just send us a quick email, explain to us, the situation, and we will get the toggle set up for you. And then eventually at one point, this will be something that is being added to the system to where you can choose that and manage that on your own. But as I mentioned, the system now will calculate based on your need. However, you need to send us a request to make sure that it's set up with that, which one you want. Just make sure. No. Okay. Pay stubs. So we actually had a couple of requests for pay stubs. We were having some concerns. So we did clean up some pay stubs. So it is removing past accruals. We had a couple of accruals that were kind of hanging on to the bottom, even though they hadn't been used in over a year. So that has been cleaned up. And then we were also noticing that some of our $0 pay stubs were not printing out as needed. So we cleaned those up as well, made sure that the $0 invoices, $0 paychecks will allow a pay stub to print, as well as being able to see those accruals that are no longer active or no longer being used after a certain time frame are dropping off of those pay stubs. Now, keep in mind that you must zero out the accrual. So if you have someone who is maybe had bereavement and you see that it's still showing 2 hours of bereavement in their record and you need that to drop off, you must drop it to 0 first before the system will say, oh, okay, I see this now needs to be dropped off. And then it takes a certain time frame before it will fall off. And then W-2s. We noticed that there were a couple of scenarios in the W-2s that were involving some column options. So in the actual W-2s itself, here, real quick, open one. You're having some scenarios with box 14 where box 14 has and box 12 have a couple of options. And so we were noticing that box 12A maybe was assigned to G and D for some reason. And so it should have been G for box A and D for box B, something like that. But what was happening is some of the customers didn't have it assigned right. And then when they fixed it to assign it properly, then it wasn't coming out on the W-2. So we found that glitch thanks to you guys helping us see some of these things. We definitely appreciate your insight and your input when these are happening, and we were able to fix them. So Okay. And then, of course, we're always looking at our speed performance to try and get our system to process more quickly. So a couple more optimizations for to help shorten the payroll process. Now, of course, it may not get, everybody is not going to get in there tomorrow and say, oh my gosh, you're right, my payroll ran so much faster. You may not notice that. But please do understand that everybody's database is different, and something that may have really sped up someone else may look different to another team. You all have, some customers have been with us for a really long time, so your database is a lot thicker, a lot more data to run through for the payroll process. Some of you have a lot more rules as far as benefits, deductions, accruals. So those all affect how quickly that payroll can process. But every day we're looking at ways to try and improve that for you. We know the purpose of a program is to help enhance your day, not frustrate your day. So that's why we're working really hard to make sure that we're getting these performance issues looked at as quickly as possible, and helping you guys, helping us with the ideas portal and putting information out there on what's going to help enhance our product and make it better for you is being looked at quite frequently now, more and more every day. So we do appreciate all of your input out there to help us improve the system. Again, not a ton of new information, but a couple of exciting items that you guys have requested that we're happy to finally get out here. Inactivating the inactivating components is a big one for me. I've been very excited about that, and I can't wait for them to actually also have an inactive active toggle so that you can't see them as well. So looking forward to those few changes coming up here soon. Let's see, how remove accrual sick leave hours. Oh, how to remove an accrual. Okay, sure. So you can actually run a $0 payroll that will allow you to remove accruals from anyone who is no longer with the city, so or no longer active. Just go in and see if I can set one of these up real quick. So one of the things that, I'm not going to go through the whole payroll process. I'm happy to, if you want to call in, we can do that if you need more help. But the best way to do that is to come into their sick information, set up a accrual sick that you can run as a one-time correction. And you'll come back in here and you'll set up each amount that needs to be changed. Now, because this one is set to a table, this is a little bit trickier because you definitely would want it to be on a flat amount with no table. And then when you come over to your employees, you would set the flat amount. So if they had a sick leave of 25, you would do a negative 25 because that's what you want to have pulled off of their employee record. And then you would just do that for each employee that had that scenario, and then run a zero timesheet payroll, or during one of your next payrolls if it pertains to some people who are just getting their final paycheck. You can also do that. But that's how I would run a correction, usually around the first of the year, a time frame when you can just get everything cleaned out all at once. Then you could fix that up. Now, we're happy to help if you want to, put in a ticket. We can walk you through specifically. Sometimes it's different. If you're doing it during a payroll, maybe they accrued 8 in sick leave, but you need their balance to go to 0, but it's showing 12 out there. So it's going to bump up to 20. So it would need to be adjusted by 12 instead of by 20. So there's some things to keep in mind there based on what's happening in the payroll system at that time. The comp time was a huge help this last payroll. Thank you for getting that out there. Yes, Savannah, thank you very much for telling us about it. And we are very excited to see that it's working for you. that is different than the way I was shown. So there's a couple of different ways to adjust sick leave. If that's what you're referring to, accounting, there are a couple of different ways to do things in the system. If you're doing something as a one-time change, you can actually come out here and change it, to do a one-time payroll and then come back out here and zero it all out, clear it all out. Or if you're doing it during a payroll, you can populate it once the payroll is generated, go in and do the negatives. So again, like I said, there's a couple of different ways of doing things in the system. So yeah, it might not be exactly the way that you were shown, but just keep that in mind that we do have multiple ways. Is it still going to create a FUTA? It's there. Yes. So one thing, Lily, thank you for your question. One thing I didn't cover about the Idaho and Oregon scenario is that if you're already in Oregon, you know that you don't need to change anything. Nothing needs to change in your system. If you happen to need to do something for someone who is working in or lives in Washington, if you need to do something different for them, feel free to reach out. I don't think you need to because they would still be working in Oregon or Idaho, so they would still need to be paying those taxes. So they would just be set up per standard to have those taxes taken. It still is going to create your FUTA tax just as you need, just as you have it set up. It's there when I go to pay federal taxes, but then disappears. I'll have to look at that specifically with you because I'm not sure why it would disappear. Yeah, Lily, let me look at that specifically with you because I'm not sure what that means 100%. One thing I wanted to share with everyone before we kind of part ways today is, again, we're going to send out an email to everyone asking for feedback on these classes. We really could use some feedback on if they're being helpful. Is there anything specific that you guys would like to see in some of these classes? Are we going too fast? Can we do things slightly different? Your feedback really helps us learn and grow these quick connects. They're still fairly new. I think we're only on our 11th one. Yeah, episode 11 since we started putting these out here. So still lots to learn on our end on how we can better help get things out to you guys. This is only our second experience with trying to do one for actual releases. And we're going to keep trying to do that if we feel that there are enough changes in the release that it requires some additional direction for all of you. We're going to try and do that. This payroll publish release for 29 is probably going to be released this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So you'll be able to utilize any of this changes right away. I know some of you are going to be saying, oh, well, we just got an update last week, but the tax item is not in last week's update. It's in this new 29. So watch that come across. If you don't see it come out, just make sure you're closing your program and reopening it because that's what kicks off and generates that. And you should see it by tomorrow morning. We also have a big webinar coming up this next week. Okay, great. Sounds like everybody's gotten some updates even this morning, as early as this morning. Wonderful. Okay, glad to hear it, everyone. If you're not getting it, just close your program and reopen, and that should generate that, kick it off. So wonderful to hear you guys got that this morning. But a big webinar is going to happen this same time next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Huge changes coming for Vision, just a little glimpse into our future. We would love everyone to join us. If you're not already a part of our emails that come out, see if I can find one real quick to share with you. An email that came out just Friday, or the emails where this came out on last whatever week we sent this. But there's many, there's another one next week that I'm hoping everyone was able to see come through and get registered for. And that is a vision product showcase. It's going to be, you know, a look at our first look at next generation of vision. So we're super excited to share this with everybody. You know, have everyone come out and take a look at where we're going in 2027 and the exciting information that we have to share with you all. So please, please, if you haven't seen this, look in your inbox for it, or share it with your team members. We would really like, this is not only for payroll, it's not only for utilities, it's for vision as a whole. So we'd really like as many people as possible to be able to share in that presentation. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Again, can you give us some information on the conference this year? So I will share some information. Due to just a lot of different changes happening in vision, some unforeseen circumstances this year, and light, you know, just overall hardly anyone coming to the last few years, we're making a kind of a shift in what we're doing for our conferences. Obviously, we're going to continue to have these quick connects, but what we're going to do instead is some small regional meetings. We're going to find some locations, and I'm just, you know, off the top of my head, I'm just kind of spitballing here. Somewhere like Chelan will come in for a couple of days, and hopefully the people around that region can come in and see us. We're going to do some couple, like 2 days, you know, like 4 hours in payroll, 4 hours in financials, 4 hours in payroll. This will, or utilities, this will allow for our our cities to kind of, you know, if you have someone who does utilities, you can send them over because it's within an hour drive. You can send them over for a couple of hours and then come back. And then if you need to go to financials, you can go over. And it just is kind of trying to open it up to more people being able to get in and get the information that's needed without the huge cost of you guys having to come over for a conference, stay multiple days, pay hotels, food purchases, and things like that. So we're trying to do more of these regional scenarios. We're probably going to try to do anywhere between 3 and 4 over these next 6 months. I think we're probably going to continue to have them in the October timeframe, and they're all going to be pretty close to each other. For instance, like, you know, first week of October, second week of October, we'll probably have 2 different site visits, site locations. And then again, like I mentioned, they're going to be more regional. So we're going to keep them, you know, closer to area. Like we're going to probably try to have one in Spokane for a lot of our Spokane customers that are around that area. We're going to try and have one in Chelan, which is kind of another group over there that can come within an hour drive away. So we're going to try to do some things like that this year. Now, we probably won't stop our annuals altogether. We're just maybe going to do it every couple of years, for instance. So instead of doing it every year, we're going to do something like this, test the water, see how everything works for everybody, and then possibly go another location at another time, or in 2 or 5 years, have everybody together all at once. And let's talk about some Oregon cities. Yeah, definitely would like to see more Oregon cities. So there should be one this year. Yes, there's definitely going to be a regional meeting this year. Definitely going to have one, I think, in the Chelan area, one in the Spokane area. And then for those of you who don't know, I'm kind of temporarily right now in the Seattle area. So I'm looking to see how we can kind of just split this side of the mountains kind of into threes or two. Maybe do one in Wenatchee, not Wenatchee, in Tri-Cities, somewhere in there. So it's just kind of, a little bit to help everybody just travel a lot less and get more quantity with a less price. That's really what we want to help get you guys what we need you to, what we want you to enjoy without feeling like we're a burden cost wise. So that's kind of the goal that we're going for. And we're super excited to kick it off this year. And again, like I mentioned, it'll be sometime after August when these will start rolling out. Probably happening in October, which is around our standard meeting, annual meeting conference timeframe. Okay, yeah, it's just feel free to send in a ticket, Chad. Yeah, Chad wants to set up the Idaho State tax option for their system. So definitely, if you're going to get those set up, send in a ticket so that we can get those set up. I will let everybody know I am absolutely booked today, solid straight on my meetings, but just send tickets in, and the team members all know how to do this, and we'll get it set up for you. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for joining today. If you have any other questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing and talking to you all here sometime this year. We'll get out there and see ya.